So the outdoors and creativity and art are what saves me. So I'm Laura Niblack. I live in Raymond, Maine. We just recently moved here. I have 2 dogs and a husband, a husky named Minka and a husky named Boone. So I'm a metalsmith. I'm self-employed. I work as a jeweler, working primarily with silver and turquoise and casting botanicals. And just for fun, I love skiing and hiking and foraging. So foraging a lot of the materials that I use for jewelry. I was diagnosed officially with bipolar disorder in 2018. I kind of always knew that I had it, a lot of ups and downs, but it wasn't like professionally diagnosed by like a doctor until 2018. So I have bipolar 2, and it kind of feels like big ups and big downs, but it's more gradual than bipolar 1, where bipolar 1, I'm under the impression that it's like week to week, whereas mine is more like a few months of like really, if I was unmedicated, like high highs, like extremely extroverted, high energy, not being able to sleep. The flip side of that would be like just deep depression. So isolating, sleeping a ton, eating more, not wanting to go outside, doing things that I normally loved. And then just like a lot of panic attacks, just like deep despair. And I think for me, it would be like a downward spiral where I would beat myself up for feeling the way that I did and just going kind of down the drain, and remembering like things that I regret and this and that. So I think initially it was pretty extreme what happened. Like I said, I was kind of put into like a generalized hospital when I first was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So it was kind of a catch-all. So I was with people that were really extreme. I probably was the most mild there. And so when I first found out, I was very surprised, but also not surprised at the same time. I kind of went through a mourning phase where I wished that it was like I could get rid of it, but you live with it and you have to manage it your entire life. So it kind of felt like a lifelong sentence in a way. On a whim, I decided to take a Metalsmithing 101 class at like a local community studio, and I took it and became utterly and completely obsessed with it, which probably was hilarious because I was manic at the time. And so literally my entire life and brain and everything was filled with all things metal and trying to learn as much as I possibly could. And I set aside a bunch of money to get all the tools. And then things became so crazy at work that I eventually just one day impulsively, which is a symptom, just quit and was like, hey honey, I'm gonna start a metalsmithing business. I have no idea what I'm doing. I barely have the skill sets. I don't know what to do as a small business owner, but we're gonna do it. And so literally that week I bought my first stones and I created an Instagram, and that was 6 years ago. And now I've been supporting my family for the past like year, which is like so insane. So I think that impulsivity in a way benefited me, because I didn't have anything to compare it to. I just dove in headfirst and did it, and it worked. The way that my mental illness and my work kind of interact is I'm lucky enough to be self-employed, and so I can kind of work with the flow of mania and depression, and work more or work less, and also really structure my days around like getting outside and the routine and playing with my dogs. And I think they just kind of go hand in hand, especially, I don't know, like my work and art and metalsmithing and just like working with hand tools has been really healing. And I'm very lucky that I found it so early on in my experience with being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I'll continually go back to it. Like if I'm really manic and can't sleep, I'm here in the studio making jewelry. If I am really depressed and I need to pick me up, I'm here in the studio making jewelry. And also like just spending a lot of time outside. So when I don't know, we get like a huge dumping of snow. I'm lucky enough to be able to set aside physical work and go ski for the entire day. Or if it's a beautiful day outside, I can work at night and really get outside and enjoy just how beautiful it is. So I would say I am really lucky that I'm able to work with the wavelengths of my brain, but I think metalsmithing and being outside are like the constants. That was always my biggest fear, like growing up, is that I didn't know what I wanted to be. Like nothing, like I didn't fit into quite any mold and I just would dabble. And this is like the perfect combination of every random weird jack of all trades thing that I've ever been able to do. And so that I was able to like create my own path, my own mold, and even work schedule is like insane to me. So my process for essentially managing my symptoms is I found a really great psychiatrist and also a therapist. And so basically it's been 70% therapy, so working on retraining my brain, ways of dealing with it naturally, and then 30% medication because I have essentially a chemical imbalance and I need more serotonin and other things to help manage just the normal wavelength of my brain. And so it's been actively going to therapy and being more open with my family. And so now that my family is aware of it, especially my husband, he's really great. We just check in. I've learned to be a little bit more transparent and noticing the symptoms if something becomes negative. And then working with my psychiatrist to check in, being very honest with him. I'm very lucky that I found a really great therapist and psychiatrist that I've been with since like when I first was diagnosed. Honestly, just routine, literal routine. So kind of knowing what to expect for the week, eating well, exercising. Like I literally have to exercise like an hour a day, especially if I'm manic, to just tire myself out. And then working regularly, like with what I love. So metalsmithing and designing and hanging out with friends and mostly getting outside. Honestly, I would say being outside a lot and getting outside of myself. I think if I were to be able to talk to my past self, like right before I had my official diagnosis, it would be that things get better and that they can be even better than you would initially imagine. And that like it's gonna be okay, but you're gonna go through like the darkest time in your life and think that your life is over. But you're gonna come out on the other end happier than ever, stable, with a lot of tools and support from your friends and your family, and medicine that actually works and people that are trustworthy, and you don't have to go deep into those deep pits of despair and be exhausted all the time from not being able to sleep or just experiencing that deep, deep pain, or being able to work through like the panic attacks and like just the despair. And then on the upside, you won't be so hyper all the time and constantly questioning every decision that you make, or just feeling out of control. That it might seem scary and overwhelming to have this lifelong sentence, if you will, of bipolar disorder, or even having the label, but you don't need to be embarrassed by it, and you're going to eventually be able to be open about it and talk about it, and help other people that have struggled with it and have some normalcy. I think what's cool too is almost being able to take back the like the label of bipolar disorder, which was always so negative, especially like for my mom, and be able to live like a really happy, fulfilling and like exciting, inspiring life, as opposed to feeling like your life was over, that you're flawed, and those flaws are okay.